Let us know your thoughts on the content of this video. Do you agree or disagree? And what solutions are you implementing? We have been here before. In the earlier 90s, dreadlocks were in style, dashikis and conscious rap lyrics were still competing for popularity against gangster rap. Yet somehow we backtracked into the worship of materialism and degrading our women and destroying our communities, all the while making it seem cool. Here we are again. Are black people in this for the long haul, or is this another trend for social acceptance? Only time will tell, but here are 5 reasons why blacks are fighting white supremacy today and maybe the future. Number 5, police brutality. While the media portrays the aftermath of protests after police shootings as looting and rioting, some also see it as unity. In Ferguson and Baltimore, rival gangs banded together to fight injustice and protest against police brutality. No matter what neighborhood beefs or division amongst those in the inner city, the police have always been seen as a threat. Police violence against those in the inner city has been common in rap music since the mid-80s. Police do not discriminate against who they attack. Doesn't matter which gang you're from, male or female, handicapped or ill. All have suffered at some point at the hands of police. In conclusion, as a result of this, blacks have come together to form gun clubs to protect their communities, such as the Huey Newton Gun Club in Dallas and other areas in the country. Slowly but surely, black people are beginning to eventually patrol and secure their communities. Number 4, black economics. One of the main themes in lifting the black community is black economics. Many feel that if we have control over our own economy, we could eliminate crime, thus eliminating a large amount of police brutality, because we would be able to hold elected officials responsible, thus holding police officers accountable. In the last several years, many of us using holiday boycotts and cash mobs to support black businesses. Part of the reason for the boycotts are that many are becoming aware of the crimes being committed by large corporations that affect the black community. Corporations include McDonald's supporting the prison industrial system by hiring cheap labor through inmates. The more we connect the dots of white supremacy, the easier it will be to connect the dots on how to unify economically in the black community. Again, this will not happen overnight, but many are beginning to recognize the power of the black dollar. Despite the poverty rate, blacks are the biggest consumers. Hopefully, we can begin to create our own industries with this dollar, thus bettering our communities to eradicate crime by providing employment opportunities to those most vulnerable to crime and those most likely to commit crime. Groups that practice group economics within their culture tend to be more unified mentally and spiritually as well. If whites can unify with blacks for economic reasons, black people should be able to unify with blacks for much more than economic reasons. In conclusion, it is pretty evident that the more intact one is within their culture, the longer the economics circulates within that culture. The Jews own their own clothing stores, banks, synagogues, and grocery stores. It is imperative that blacks understand that it will take us producing in various industries to keep our money circulating. It is important to note that black economics should be a byproduct of black unity and not a cultural exclusive for blacks above the poverty line. We must understand that we have to educate our people on the proper economic infrastructure to building black wealth and ensure that those on the lower class model will not be left out. Number 3, black homeschooling. An estimated 2,200,000 African American children are currently being homeschooled, according to the National Home Education Research Institute. Black families have become one of the fastest growing demographics in homeschooling, with black parents making up an estimated 10% of the homeschooling population. For comparison's sake, they make up 16% of all public school students nationwide, according to the National Center for Education Statistics. And while white homeschooling families traditionally cite religious or moral disagreements with public schools in their decision to pull them out of traditional classroom settings, studies indicate black families are more likely to cite the culture of low expectations for African American students or dissatisfaction with how their children, especially boys, are treated in school. Re-educating our people is one of the fastest ways to ensure that we will unite. Learning the contributions of our ancestors to this country and the world is vital to lifting the spirits and confidence of black people, and the younger the better. Furthermore, having teachers that can sympathize with the black experience is just as important when creating a learning environment for young blacks to learn in. Often in public education, the learning environment can be chaotic as kids are often suffering from PTSD due to their living situation, which can make it difficult for them to learn in. Furthermore, learning that your history only began as descendants of slaves isn't empowering you to take control of your community. In an article in The Atlantic about the rise of blacks homeschooling their children, Cheryl Field Smith, an associate professor in the Department of Educational Theory and Practice at the University of Georgia, has in her own studies found similar motivations among black homeschoolers. The schools want little black boys to behave like little white girls, and that's just never going to happen. They are different. In the last several years, we have seen an increase in the ban on dreadlocks and afros, mainly in Kentucky high schools. Not only are blacks being miseducated on their culture and contributions to history in school, but they cannot even honor their culture and appearance. As a result, one can only come to the conclusion that brainwashing by way of a Eurocentric mindset seems to be the only way to learn in the public school system. It is important to understand that whites may choose to homeschool for different reasons than blacks do. In a 2012 report published in the Journal of Black Studies, Mazama surveyed black homeschooling families from around the country and found that most choose to educate their children at home, at least in part to avoid school-related racism. Number 2, black athletes stepping up. A stereotype associated with the black community used to be that rapping or being an athlete were the only ways to make it out of the inner city. This stigma included an unspoken rule that athletes were just that, athletes, and off-the-court issues were not to be taken seriously or spoken of. After all, you're just here for our entertainment. Athletes, although were rewarded for community service and donating to charity, the line stopped there. Speaking on controversial issues seemed to be out of their league, no pun intended, as athletes were stereotyped as uneducated students who took easy majors in college, and teachers showed favoritism for athletes in high school. Not since the days of Muhammad Ali and Jim Brown have we seen athletes stepping up again and again against injustice. Rappers speaking out was once fairly common and expected, but athletes just played on the court or the field and let their actions speak there. In conclusion, in terms of worshiping materialism, black athletes have been synonymous with black rappers. However, with the passing of Ali and exposure of racist league sports owners, athletes are coming to the realization that they have the power to influence change, and they are in fact role models, contrary to what some may believe. Number 1, tragedy brings us closer together. This is not limited to tragedies stemming from police brutalities, but all tragedies that stem from a result of white supremacy that affect the black community, either directly or indirectly. Unfortunately, the old adage of black people only coming together at funerals and family reunions is somewhat true. This is rooted in reactionary behavior rather than proactive behavior. New scientific research says that stress may lead to cooperative behavior. A 2012 article from the Scientific American details that stress can actually bring people together due to our innate need for social connection. This, coupled with the social media age, only makes this finding more relevant. Decades of research shows that the social connection is a fundamental human need linked to both psychological and the physical health, including a stronger immune system, faster recovery from disease, and even longevity. A study by Benjamin Converse and colleagues at the University of Virginia found that feeling out of control leads to greater generosity and helpfulness. The mourning of blacks being killed can vary depending on the region of the country you are in. Candlelight vigils that are held can often bring out hundreds to pay respect to a slain friend. Doesn't matter if they were lost to police violence or not. How blacks mourn in New Orleans can be completely different to how they mourn in Los Angeles. Mourning rituals are a culture within itself. The popularization of pouring 40 ounces into the ground are fading away and are transforming into likes and comments on Facebook memorials. With the previous reasons combined, we believe that a shift will take place where black people will begin to realize a common enemy in global white supremacy, and that they will have to take matters into their own hands to protect their neighborhoods. This will not happen overnight, but with Trump being in office, the black community will have no choice but to realize its own destiny is in its own hands. Many blacks feel that Trump would not solve police brutality or crime in their communities, especially if Obama didn't. As stated earlier, tragedy in the black community is not just limited to police brutality. Gentrification and food deserts are major issues that mainstream media tends to overlook. Black people are being displaced systematically on land that was stolen. Black people suffer from higher rates of illness and diseases due to food deserts in their community. The more the government denies and refuses to correct centuries of wrongdoing, the sooner black people will realize that it's up to them to fix their issues and vote out politicians who do not have their best interests at heart. Next, gentrification and bicycles. What is the connection? How to recognize early signs of gentrification in your neighborhoods. Stay tuned. Until next time, think independently and strive for intelligence. Your future depends on it.